Masked Hero.
Hello everybody and welcome to another one of my Commander deck deep dives, I suppose, where I am looking at Commander decks that I have that really kind of fit that criteria of being like my creme de la creme, the decks that even when I get out of the game, I would probably never take this deck apart. I'd probably keep it in whatever form or fashion because it's just one of those ride or die decks. And the reason why we were talking about Chatterfang Squirrel General today is that this is a deck that I had to really kind of do some soul searching to find. And when I finally found it, I was so happy with it that I just could not imagine the idea of like taking it apart. I probably brainstormed how this deck was going to work for quite a while. I know I wrote about it when I was writing for Hipsters of the Coast, and I think at the time it may have been a 5 to 10 year journey where I have been a fan of competitive Magic to some degree, even though I know that deep down I cannot play competitive Magic. I'm just not that good. But I definitely respected the history of the game and the history of how everything worked. And so very early on, as somebody who just likes to port decks from other formats into Commander and just kind of get a kick out of that, I wanted to try to take the Prosperous Bloom that was originally from, I think that was actually from Mirage Block deck. It was a Mirage Block. Maybe not the actual format, but maybe it was in Standard. I don't remember. Maybe Standard didn't even exist at the time. These, off the top of my head, points are kind of beyond me, but I wanted to build this Prosperous Bloom deck in Commander, and so I was looking at everything. I was looking at a Sultai deck. I was looking at an Orzhov deck, like all these places, and finally Chatterfang came out, and I was like, oh man, a Squirrel Commander, that's great. And as I began to think about the options that he offered, I realized that this might be the place to do it. And I would say over the course of maybe 3 or 4 months, I was writing for Hipsters of the Coast. I was putting together articles, every other week, every week, whatever the cadence was at the time. While in the background, I was just trying to piece together what would this deck look like. And then once I pieced it together, I bought the pieces and I started to kind of tinker with it. And finally, I reached this point where I was like, okay, I have to write about this. I have to make this a deck. And what I will say is that there are a lot of decks that I build where I think it's probably fair to say, like, if you're worried about this deck, you should not be worried. Like, this is not a good deck. Because, like, whatever infamy this Commander has, that's not what this deck does. That's not what this deck does, but I would say that if you are afraid of Chatterfang, you are rightfully afraid of this deck. This is not meant to be a infinite combo deck or one that just wins out of nowhere, but it certainly is a deck where I will say wholeheartedly, this deck is powerful. I think, let me just check the bracket number here because I have it in Moxfield. It is a bracket 2 deck. It does not have anything that I would deem as extremely powerful that is broken. I mean, it has no game changers, but I don't think that matters. I think at the end of the day, like, it is just a deck that might punch above its weight class, is what I'll just say. Let's go through, and actually how I'm going to format this is, as I was constructing this deck, I went out of my way to basically categorize. I don't normally do that with Moxfield decks, but I categorized every single card. Like, you need to earn your place in this deck. And this is kind of an older Commander philosophy, but I believe it was the 7x9. You have 7 cards that fit like your 9 themes, or maybe it was 9 cards that fit your 7 themes. I don't remember now. And I know I sort of built it off this concept of like, prove that you have enough redundancy in the deck to actually like fit each category. So I'm going to be actually showing off the deck by category. All that to say, like, I want to talk about this deck and I want to talk about it in its categories and kind of talk about the structure of how this deck works. But let's get started real quick by just talking about Chatterfang. Obviously he's been up on the screen, but let's just talk about the nuances of him and why he sort of fit what I needed for this deck. So he is a 3 cost for 2 generic and a green. Legendary creature, Squirrel Warrior. He has Forest Walk, which is a pretty rare ability, but this creature cannot be blocked as long as defending player controls a forest. That will come into play if 1 or more tokens would be created under your control. Those tokens plus that many 1/1 Squirrel tokens are created instead. So whenever we make a token, we are going to make a matching Squirrel token. If we make a Squirrel token, it's going to become 2 Squirrel tokens. And in some cases, I don't think this affects this deck. I think it affects my Brutaclad deck. But in this deck, I don't believe we have to worry about the quality of the token in such a way where it's like this token comes into play, exiled at the end of turn. That becomes a nuanced thing that I believe does not affect the Squirrel token, but I will put that rule up on the screen real quick just to make sure that I have that right. And then the additional thing is you can pay a black and sacrifice X squirrels. Target creature gets plus X minus X until the end of turn. So we can just be sacrificing squirrels to basically have removal. And I think removal on your commander is a good idea. This is why I believe that Chatterfang is a commander that you certainly want to deal with, because he is a problem child. He can just blank an entire field, go, oh, it doesn't matter because I can just do these things. And we'll talk about some of the recursive engines in this deck, but he earns that kind of stereotype that he will just sort of like sit there and on the stack just delete a board. And that is fair. I'm trying to use it not to solely do that. That is a backup plan, but I want to use the components of this card to basically be the best Prosperous Bloom deck that I can assemble. But let's move on and let's transition into the cards that, let's start with the Aristocrat cards. We are basically looking to we'll be sacrificing and getting some kind of benefit from creatures being sacrificed. And so right off the bat, we have an enchantment like Bastion of Remembrance, where we're going to be creating a token. Whenever a creature I control dies, each opponent loses 1 life, I gain 1 life. That's, right on board with what an Aristocrat's deck wants to do. We're going to be making a lot of Squirrel tokens. That's why this is going to have its place there. Additionally, we have something like Calling the Weak, another way to sacrifice a creature kind of on the spot, which can be helpful with Chatterfang, where it's like, okay, I only have 1 black mana that I can create, but I can use this to sacrifice one of my squirrels that maybe doesn't matter as much, or it just kind of gets me in the place where I can, start going off in some way, but then I can generate that 4 black mana so that I have 4 instances of black mana to enable me to do more. And because sometimes that you get a chokehold with the black mana, and this is a rare occurrence of where I can kind of get around that. Got Dark Prophecy, again, Aristocrat card. Whenever a creature you control dies, you draw a card and lose 1 life. That generally does not mean anything bad for me, because I will draw. Yes, you could draw yourself to death, but this generally means that I'm just going to be able to keep some gas in the tank. I think this is no longer, I think, a staple card. I don't know the EDH rec numbers on it, but this is one that definitely had its place in the the meta 5 to 10 years ago, and has its purpose of just drawing me cards. Fecundity, whenever a creature dies, that creature's controller may draw a card. This is kind of a group huggish deck version of Dark Prophecy. You're not losing the life, and certainly if you sacrifice too many creatures, well, you can just choose not to draw with this one, but Dark Prophecy could kill you. This is just a way to have redundancy of Dark Prophecy and just have a way to allow me to dig if I need to. I'm not that worried about card draw, but this is certainly a card that will help with that, so that I don't need to concern myself with it. We've got Liliana, Dreadhorde General. Whenever a creature dies, I draw a card. That's just a static ability, and then she just has ways to create a token for me if I need that. Her first minus ability has each player sacrifice 2 creatures, and her ultimate is each opponent chooses a permanent they control for each permanent type and sacrifices the rest. Honestly, this is almost just a way to get me a Squirrel token, and also just a way to draw me cards, and that's almost exclusively what I'm using her for. She does not usually survive very long. It's possible that maybe the tolerance of Planeswalkers has shifted a little bit in the last 2 or 3 years, as I haven't had this deck out as much, but it's definitely one of those cards where it's just kind of a 6-man enchantment that's just going to draw me cards and maybe create a token for me. Got Moldervine Reclamation, another enchantment. Whenever a creature you control dies, you gain a life and draw a card. So kind of the reverse of Dark Prophecy, keeps me alive a little bit better. The reason why I have so much redundancy is, 1, I usually only need 1 of these creature dies, draw a card, cards or effects in play, but I want the redundancy there so that I always have a way to have access to it. And I may not actually play out a second copy unless I actually, like in case one of them gets removed. If one of them gets removed, then you play out another copy. That's not the prime directive that I'm working on. That's the thing I'm most concerned about. The thing I'm most concerned about is, having a good hand. If I have to discard this, I will. If I have another one out, but you have so many in play that at some point, if you lose one, you're probably going to have the chance to draw into another one. We've got the Nader's Nightblade, a 3-cost elf warrior. Whenever a token you control leaves the battlefield, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. One of the ways, I don't think this necessarily fit into the Prosperous Bloom, although it's possible we get to that category and this does, but this is essentially doing kind of what I was looking to do with Prosperous Bloom, where, I'm sacrificing my squirrel tokens and everybody's just shifting life totals super fast. And this is definitely one of those stopgaps where, like I said, I can delete a board. I can also just delete the entire table, because all of a sudden you go to make some kind of attack. I sacrifice 12 squirrels. Each opponent loses 12 life. I gain 12 life. And, that's the small scale version of what could happen. But yeah, it's certainly, an Aristocrat's card through and through. We got Pitiless Plunderer, which I think is probably a staple in Chatterfang, no matter what version you go with. Whenever a creature you control dies, create a treasure token. This is certainly one of the corner pieces of whatever kind of combo I'm going to be running. And again, it's an Aristocrat card because whenever a creature dies, that's what I care about. Got Poison Tip Archer, Reach, Death Touch, but whenever another creature dies, each opponent loses 1 life. So yeah, just kind of the same thing as before. Viscera Seer, just a way to sacrifice a creature to scry 1. This is just a very good effect that with no mana investment, I can just be sacrificing creatures and scrying, and sometimes that can just be the way to basically set up your draw and then have a way to draw a card, find that card you're looking for, sacrificing some squirrels, get yourself to the point where you need it, and then hopefully you have a way to just draw a single card, even if it's just cycling. But yeah, this is a card that probably outclassed nowadays, but I still love it. And then Zulaport Cutthroat, a 1/1 for 2. Whenever Zulaport Cutthroat or another creature you control dies, each opponent loses 1 life, and you've gained 1 life. So all of this is kind of a bunch of redundancy. We kind of gone round and round in circles talking about this, but that's the Aristocrat package. But this was just like the second layer of kind of having a backup plan, because not everything can revolve around trying to pull off this Prosperous Bloom combo in, a Golgari deck. But why don't we turn the corner and talk about what this entire deck has kind of been built around. All right, and here we are looking at the Prosperous Bloom kind of combo that I've ported over. So these are the cards that are going to be adding to that. And as I said before, Prosperous Bloom is a Mirage era combo deck based around Prosperity, Cadaverous Bloom. The idea just being that you would use Cadaverous Bloom to generate a whole bunch of mana. You would filter that into a certain amount of blue to play Prosperity, and then you would just make everybody draw a huge amount of cards. And the backup plan also being that we would see Drain Life, which kind of functioned the same way, except you wouldn't have to filter any kind of mana to do it. It was created by Mike Long, and I believe there was somebody else who also built it. But the general consensus just being that you're going to be generating a whole bunch of mana to do some kind of combo, and that's what I wanted to kind of create as I was working on this deck. So right off the bat, we have the Bog Initiate, an old school card out of Invasion, I believe. Yes, Invasion. And you can pay a generic to generate a black mana. For the most part, this is just here to... This is a very loved card, as you can see. I've had this for over 20 years. And because it was just such a fascinating card to me. If we are in dire straits, we can filter our green mana into black so that we can use Chatterfang. And that can be the most important thing. There are other options here. There are other things that we need to do. Like we'll get into it in just a second. But this is definitely one of those cards that I have exclusively to basically be a filter. And is it the most redundant thing? Is it the most streamlined thing? Probably not. There's probably better versions of this effect now that exist. But I guess I don't care. This is what I'm choosing. And that's why I love this deck. Got Cadaverous Bloom, which is part of the the name of the deck. Of course, it was going to make it into here. This was also, I think, part of what drove it was when I tried to do like an Orzhov version. It's like, but I can't put Cadaverous Bloom in, so what's even the point? But you will choose a card in your hand and remove it from the game. Add a black or green to your mana pool. The thought here, I don't think I explained Prosperous Bloom correctly. You'd use Prosperity to make a huge hand, and Cadaverous Bloom to suddenly shift over and play a giant Drain Life, a card we'll talk about in just a second. But yeah, this had to be in the deck. I mean, it doesn't have to be, but for me, it was kind of like a duh, this is going to be in the deck. Just a way to turn your hand into a bunch of mana that we will be using to do exciting and fun things. This does a lot of work for me. It probably shouldn't. It should probably be an outdated card, but it just isn't for me. We've got Consume Spirit, which is functionally the same as the Drain Life that we'll be looking at in a second. I should have put that just on top. That'll be the next card I'll talk about, but Consume Spirit is a sorcery. You pay X, 1, and black. Spend only black mana on X. Consume Spirit deals X damage to target creature or player. You gain X life. And I believe at this point it would just say X damage to target. Just a target. Because you can hit planeswalkers with this. And yeah, this is what you're trying to build up a bunch of mana to do, to hit somebody real hard and just, grow your life back, take them out of the game. Call of the Week, we've already talked about. It is just we already talked about how it functions in this. It can get us the mana we need to do a big drain life, or it can just be a way to kind of start off Chatterfang doing his thing. But then we'll skip ahead just a little bit, reorganize this. Drain life. So drain life is 1 and a black. Drain life does 1 damage to a single target for each black mana spent, in addition to casting this card. So it's not an X spell necessarily, but you can just kind of like overfill it. The caster gains 1 life for each damage inflicted. If you drain life from a creature, you cannot gain more life than that creature's current toughness. That doesn't really matter because we're almost exclusively going to be aiming this at a player. Obviously, I will have the current version of the card so that you can kind of understand how this card actually works, but pretty much Consume Spirit. I think they probably reformatted this a few times, but I had to get the earliest version that I could, for a reasonable price, because I wanted the Drain Life and the Cadaverous Bloom in the deck. And yeah, I do not aim this at too many creatures, because what's the point in gaining 4, maybe 6 life when I could be dealing 14 damage to somebody. Got Damnable Pack. Target player draws X card and loses X life. So this is kind of the black all-in-one version of Prosperity Cadaverous Bloom Drain Life, where it's like, yeah, we're going to make you draw a bunch of cards. We're going to make you lose a bunch of life. I'm happy that this exists, even if it is just... I don't think there's another version of this. I don't think they've kind of done a functional reprint of this, but I'm happy that it exists. Dark Prophecy, again, we've already talked about it in the Aristocrat section, but, we're losing stuff. We want to draw some cards. This is going to be a way for us to draw cards. I suppose that's the important thing, is we're also drawing all these cards because we want to use Cadaverous Bloom, if that wasn't obvious. Exsanguinate, a redundant version of Drain Life that costs a little bit more. Each opponent loses X life. You gain life equal to life lost this way. This is a card that has been on the radar. I don't know if it still is. I don't know how much sway Exsanguinate has anymore, because I think there's just so many other powerful things you can do. But yeah, this is just a all players version of Drain Life. Fecundity again, because we need to be drawing cards. We've got Jaheira, Friend of the Forest, a legendary creature, human, elf, druid. Tokens you control have tap, add green, and you can choose a background. Treasure tokens, Eldrazi tokens, fairy tokens, whatever it is, they can now generate a green mana, and that's just super fun. Liliana's back because we need to draw cards to pull off the combo. Moldervine Reclamation is back because we need to draw cards to pull off the combo. Pitiless Plunderer because why not? Revel in Riches. Whenever a creature an opponent controls dies, create a treasure token. At the beginning of your upkeep, if you control 10 or more treasures, you win the game. I don't often get to that. Generally, I'm not playing against goldfish. I'm playing against people that can count to 10. Chatterfang is going to be causing creatures to die. Why don't we benefit from that? And then Soulburn, which I believe is the 5th copy of Drain Life here. So you can only spend you can only spend black or red mana on the X. We're paying X, 2 and a black. Soulburn deals X damage to target creature or player. You gain life equal to the amount of damage dealt, but no more than the amount of black mana spent on X. The player's life total before Soulburn dealt damage, or the creature's toughness. All to say, you can only gain life equal to basically the restrictions that were on Drain Life, but you can't gain more life than the life you took from another player, or the amount of black mana you spent. Well, the good news is we're not playing Rakdos, so the black mana that we're spending on this is the black mana that we will be able to, is the amount of life that we will be able to regain. But yep, just redundancy all over, just more copies of Drain Life and as many variants as I can get. So now let's talk about some of the just generally good cards that don't necessarily fit into a category, but are just things that you're going to want, the meat and potatoes kind of cards that kind of fill out the rest of the deck. We got Heroic Intervention, Permanence I control, gain Hexproof and Indestructible to the end of turn. This is helpful because I play a high-profile commander that needs to be defeated on sight, and so why not make him indestructible on top of that? That does also mean that Chatterfang doesn't actually cost 3. He costs at least 4, maybe 5, depending on the situation, but this is the reason why he costs 5. Got Nature's Will, a card that I've loved ever since Kamigawa block. Whenever one or more creatures you control deals combat damage to a player, tap all lands that player controls and tap all of your lands. So this is just a good way to make sure that I always have the mana I need to go off at a moment's notice. And then we've got Revel Enriches again. Just, a good card that's going to be creating treasure tokens for me. I do not plan to win with the second effect. It has happened once or twice because I was just able to generate a bunch of treasure tokens at end of turn, but this is not the way that I plan to win. It's just a way to keep me kind of level with the rest of the table. Then let's talk about mass removal, because I feel like I'm at least outside of the box a little bit here. So we've got Casualties of War. Is a very expensive 6-mana sorcery. You get to choose one or more: destroy target artifact, destroy target creature, destroy target enchantment, destroy target land, destroy target planeswalker. You're going to want to hit more than one thing here, or else this is not worth it. The flexibility is key here, and that's what I'm most focused on with this. I suppose this is kind of a single point removal. This isn't really mass removal, but I think of it that way because it can just do so much. Swarm Yard Massacre, a 5-cost sorcery. Create 2 1/1 squirrel tokens. We're going to hopefully make that into 4. Then each creature that isn't an insect, rat, spider, or squirrel gets -1/-1 until the end of turn for each creature you control that is an insect, rat, spider, or squirrel. Hopefully this will mean that we have at least 5 squirrels in play, and -5/-5 to everything. It's going to turn that Revel Enriches or any of my Aristocrat effects into an awful lot. This has definitely wiped some of my creatures before, but it's obviously warranted. It's like I need to get rid of everything, and so let's just give everything -8, and that's just where we're going to be at. And generally, if I have a bunch of squirrels in play, the other things that I had that were drawing me cards or getting me additional mana or making me treasure tokens, those are the least of my concerns at this point, because I'm just trying to survive, because I do put a target on my head. And then Urborg Justice. I can't imagine this is a Dollar General card anymore, but it was back in the day. Black for an instant. Target opponent chooses and buries any number of creatures he or she controls equal to the number of creatures put into your graveyard from play so far this turn. If I'm sacrificing enough creatures, or if I get a Swarm Yard and I need to get rid of, a spider, because we now live in a world with the Spider-Man set and there's a lot of spiders running around, this is just a way to basically make somebody just sacrifice a bunch of stuff. That's what, at the end of the day, this is what this is target opponent sacrifices creatures equal to the amount of creatures I lost this turn. It's hilarious when somebody has a way to get around mass removal. They make all their stuff indestructible. I lose my board. Well, you lose your board too. And yeah, that's just a fun way to fun. I don't know that it's that fun. It's a way to win the game, or a way to go through the game. Another fun thing is that Chatterfang is going to be targeting a lot of things, and sometimes you need something like Glaring Spotlight to just make sure that those things can be targeted. Obviously, we live in a world with Ward now, so that does change things, but back in the day, for most of Magic history, Glaring Spotlight did exactly what I needed it to do. 1-cost artifact creatures your opponents control with hexproof can be targeted by spells or abilities you control as though they did not have hexproof. So I just turn hexproof off on your side, and then I can pay 3 and sacrifice it. Creatures I control gain hexproof until the end of turn and are unblockable this turn. So we've already got Forest Walk. We have ways of making that work, and generally I can win through commander damage. It's not the thing I go for the most. If anything, I use it as a way to deliver a bunch of damage and make it easier for me to drain life you, but making all my creatures unblockable is certainly another way that's just an onboard trick to mess with people. And then again, because we're targeting stuff all the time, we have Shadow Spear, which is an equipment that gives me +1/+1 trample and lifelink. Sometimes that can be relevant. The more important thing is pay 1 permanents your opponents control lose hexproof and indestructible till the end of turn, and equips for 2. That's just on the fly. Removing hexproof and indestructible is a just fun way to mess with people. This is kind of a called shot. Like, a lot of people know what this card is, so it's not taking anybody by surprise, but it's certainly been a card that has done me a lot of good. Just saying, hey, so I realize you're indestructible, but you're not for the turn, and let's, you're on the menu now. Let's get down to it. And it's just a good way to, I suppose indestructible doesn't matter for Chatterfang because he's just going to give you 0 toughness, but being able to take away that hexproof is key to what I'm trying to do, and sometimes it can just be a good political tool. Turning the corner, let's talk about ramp, because I think ramp is going to be important. It's one of the things that I don't think I value enough in decks. People move so quickly now, and I just don't keep up. We've got Bootlegger's Stash, which is a card that I feel like is definitely lowered in profile. This was, when I bought this was a card that was high profile, but it's just an artifact that lands you control have tap, create a treasure token. That's just nice, being able to say, hey, I'm going to tap this, I'm going to create a treasure token. Chatterfang is going to generate me a squirrel. Generally, I don't need to use this to create 10 treasure tokens, but it is a way to just kind of give me 2 or 3 to help me balance out, and then I can just use that treasure token to create the black that I need to then start sacrificing squirrels. Cage Sun, which is not often seen in 2-color decks as far as I know, but 6-cost artifact. When it enters, you choose a color. Creatures of that color get +1/+1, and whenever a land ability adds 1 or more mana of the chosen color to your mana pool, add 1 more additional to your mana pool. So this is just nice. You pick black and you're just making more and more black, and that's just a huge upside. Cultivate, just general decent enough ramp card. Growing Rites of Itlamok, legendary enchantment. When it enters, you look at the top 4 cards of your deck and reveal a creature from that and put it in your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your deck in any order. At the beginning of your end step, if you control 4 or more creatures, which we are probably going to do, you transform it. And I don't even know now how well known this card is, but you can generate a green, or you can generate a green for each creature you control. So, Yavimaya, I don't know, Gaia's Cradle. This has got Gaia's Cradle effect. And yeah, I definitely get use out of this, and then it will often filter all that green into black if I need to. We got Growth Spasm, which is just a rampant growth that gets you a 0/1 Eldrazi spawn on top of that, which also means that we should hopefully be getting a Squirrel token, and more tokens is always good. Our friend of the forest again, giving our tokens the ability to generate a green mana. Oops. Kadama's Reach, because we need redundancy. We got Perilous Foyers. 1 generic, sacrifice a creature, search your library for a land card with a basic land type and put it into the battlefield tapped, then shuffle your library. This is probably good enough that I should be considering some of my lands that I have in the deck, because we've come up with so many more dual lands now, and this just has the ability to grab you anything that has a basic land type on it, which is stellar. Got Pitiless Plunderer again. He's just going to show up as often as possible because he is ramping us. And then last card is Soul Ring. This is the rare example of a deck where I will put in Soul Ring, because I want Chatterfang so much that having him out on turn 2 and having the mana to back up something else I'm going to do is always good. It's not that I hate Soul Ring, I just don't find reasons to put it into a lot of decks. And this was definitely one where I looked at it and said, yeah, this needs to sit, because I'm trying to play a 3-mana commander, and like I said, I want to have the backup, and this just makes it that much easier to say, hey, I'm going to get him out, maybe on curve, maybe it is turn 3, but now I just have the mana backed up where I've set up enough squirrels that this is going to be a thing, and Soul Ring does add to that. Next up, let's talk about my ability to rebuy cards, because we are playing in a soft combo deck, so we don't want to lose cards, or maybe we need to rebuy them because we need to use them again sometime because we have multiple opponents. So we've got Dryad's Revival, sorcery, cost 3. Return a target card from your graveyard to your hand. It has flashback, so yeah, pretty simple. The fact that it's a sorcery is certainly a little bit of a setback, but not something that I'm too concerned with. Nostalgic Dreams, green for a sorcery, is an additional cost to play Nostalgic Dreams. Discard X cards from your hand, return X target cards from your graveyard to your hand, exile this card. So again, that sorcery speed is a little rough, but just the ability to say, hey, I've got several cards that are in my graveyard, maybe I want to get them back now so that I can combo off now, or maybe so I can combo off on the next turn. That's kind of showing your hand a little bit too much, but this is just an old school card that I definitely love and wanted to appreciate as much as possible. Noxus Revival, an instant for a Phyrexian green. Put target card from a graveyard on top of its owner's library. Pretty simple. And then we've got the non-Phyrexian version. Reclaim, put target for a green instant, put target card from your graveyard on top of your library. So a little bit different. Noxus Revival can just set somebody up, be like, hey, this land, you're going to just draw this land. Whereas Reclaim cannot do that. But in most instances, this is just getting me a card that I need back at the end of the turn pretty quickly. We've got our removal package, which I will freely admit, looking over some of these cards, I'm open to replacing them quite a bit. Some of these are not essential, but we've got Abrupt Decay, which was a pretty solid staple back in my, hipster Magic days. Black-green cannot be countered by spells or abilities. Destroy target non-land permanent with a converted mana cost 3 or less. This, I think, has been losing stock more and more over time, although there are a lot of really inexpensive things that this hits pretty easily. So I don't want to say I'm going to get rid of it, but it's not a card that I prioritize a lot. Got Death Sprout, destroy target creature, search your library for a basic land card, put it into play tapped. So that's just fun. Null Mage Shepherd, an elf shaman, tap 4 untapped creatures you control. Hopefully I have quite a few of those around. Destroy target artifact or enchantment. This is often just a way to pay for it, drop it, and then just surprise, take out a bunch of stuff. This doesn't normally survive too long on the battlefield. I'm going through enough creature tokens as it is that I should have the ability to activate this once when it hits the board, but it's probably not one that I'm going to be able to use over and over every turn. But in my experience, artifacts and enchantments are enough of a threat that you want to have at least a plan for what you're going to do if you run into some problem ones. And you don't want to have it to be so restricted that you have to prioritize, like, oh, well, I can't use this because what if there's something worse? Like, this just allows you to say, hey, whenever there's something bad, I just have a way to answer it. It's a little expensive, no question. And it might sit around in my hand a little bit, waiting to surprise somebody. But once it's down, it's also one of those creatures that, like, is this really what you're going to use your removal on? Probably not. You're probably going to look at it and be like, well, it's rough that I'm going to lose my artifacts or my enchantments, but, like, is this really what I'm going to prioritize? And, with treasure tokens out there and everything, like, luckily this isn't sacrifice a artifact because people have so many tokens and everything to deal with. But, yeah, this... I have found this to be kind of a silver bullet, is what I'm trying to say. Got Tragic Slip. I am killing my own creatures enough that this is just black for -13. You hit them with the glaring spotlight so that you can target their big creature. It allows you to sacrifice one squirrel to maybe get rid of a problem thing on the field, and then suddenly Tragic Slip just comes and takes out the big thing that people weren't expecting because they're like, well, he's not going to generate enough squirrels to Tragic Slip. He's not going to generate enough squirrels to, like, decimate my 14 or something, but this makes that possible. And then just an oldie but a goodie, Unravel the Ether. It is a instant. Choose an artifact or enchantment that its owner shuffles it into the library. So this gets around indestructible. It just also makes it so that cards don't go to the graveyard, which is sometimes just might as well be your hand. So why not put it somewhere where they just can't get to it instantly? Make them work for it. Rounding the corner to tokens, we have a pretty healthy stack here of, I believe, 21 cards. But at the end of the day, we want tokens, so we need to have a lot of ways to make them, and this is how we're going to do it. Definitely am a big fan of infinite tokens because I need a lot of tokens, and these do the trend. Sometimes I don't have enough of them, and these will help. But we've got Acorn Catapult. Just allows you to deal damage to a creature or player, and they get a scroll token. Sometimes I'll deal myself a damage. Often I will deal myself a damage. Give myself a scroll token. Got Acorn Harvest, just a fun card that brings me back to the day. So when you could just create some squirrels, and then you can flash them back and make more squirrels. And yeah, I would say that with my general, being able to create 4 squirrels, and then 4 more squirrels at the cost of 6 and 3 life is probably enough to kind of bring me back into the game. Bitter Blossom, pretty synonymous card. At the beginning of your upkeep, you lose a life and you get a fairy token. So at the end, with flying, I get a fairy rogue and a squirrel. That's pretty great. Blade of Selves, I alluded to before. Equipped creature gains myriad. And yeah, I would say, and so often you're just doing this to give it to a creature that creates tokens and create more and more tokens. And like I said, I will put it up on the screen if I'm completely wrong, but I believe this token that's created obviously goes away at the end of combat. I think the scroll token you create also goes away, but I could be wrong about that. I will definitely have the ruling up on the screen. It's just my brain is foggy. Bootlegger Stash we talked about. Just give me some tokens from my lands. Spitter. So I love this card. At the beginning of your upkeep, you may sacrifice a token. We've got plenty of those. You can turn on Tragic Slip this way. If you do, put an acorn counter onto this card. Squirrels you control get +1/+1 for each acorn counter on this card. Pay a green, tap it, create a scroll token. So yeah, this is just a way to pay a green and hopefully make 2 scroll tokens. And I would say that this deck doesn't function well without Chatterfang, but it functions well enough that, like, if I have to go a few turns and I'm just kind of doing general squirrely things, that's fine. Then we've got Deep Forest Hermit, a 5-mana elf druid with Vanishing 3. The center does play with 3 vanishing counters on it, or 3 time counters on it. At the beginning of your upkeep, remove 1 if you cannot, or when you remove the last, sacrifice it. And then when it comes into play, it makes 4 squirrel tokens, and squirrels you control get +1/+1. This is one that where you put Blade of Selves on it and it just gets real silly real fast. Even if you don't have Chatterfang, you're just creating multiples of 4 amounts of squirrels that are all huge, and it's just great for a turn. Deranged Hermit, which is what everything else was kind of what the last card was based on. It is a 5 cost with Echo, which means you could very well lose it the next turn, but yeah, sometimes I just don't care. When Deranged Hermit comes into play, create 4 squirrel tokens. All squirrels get +1/+1. So that's everybody's squirrel. So if there happens to be another squirrel player at the table, they're going to get some stuff out of Deranged Hermit. And yeah, that's probably a best friend if I'm playing at a table with another squirrel player. Gala Greeters. I'm surprised I haven't talked about this yet. Well, whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, choose one that has not been chosen this turn, put a +1/+1 counter onto Gala Greeters, create a treasure token, or you gain 2 life. The first mode I usually pick is generating that tapped treasure token. That does mean that the squirrel token is also going to come into play tapped. Then it's gain 2 life. Then it's put a +1/+1 counter on him. This is a pretty easy target. Getting his toughness up is generally not going to be the thing that saves him. Somebody's just going to, equivalent to Doom Blade him. But I definitely make that treasure token, get that squirrel, then gain some life. Girl Spasm we've already talked about. Our Friend of the Forest we've already talked about. Lolith. Spider Queen. So this probably could have been also in the Aristocrats kind of area because she does care about creatures dying, but she's a planeswalker. When a creature you control dies, put a loyalty counter onto this card. You can pay 0 to your 0 ability is draw a card, lose life. -3 is make 2/2/1 black spider tokens with Menace and Reach. This is just nice because it creates spider tokens and it creates squirrels, which is nice because, it makes the spider tokens, makes awesome squirrels. And then the ultimate ability, which I don't know that I've ever done, I don't think it's ever survived long enough, is you get an emblem with whenever an opponent is dealt damage by 1 or more creatures you control. If that player lost less than 8 life this turn, they lose life equal to the difference. This can easily be offset by the fact that you just put her into play, you sacrifice a bunch of creatures to get her loyalty up to 8, and then you just drop the emblem right away. In my experience, that does not happen very often, but it is a line of play that you do have, but I would just prefer to draw the extra card, maybe generate some spiders, and I'm not concerned with trying to angle shoot enough to get the emblem off. Mimic Vat, whenever a non-token creature you control dies, you may exile that card. If you do, return each other card exiled with Mimic Vat to their owner's graveyard, pay 3, make a token of the creature exiled with Make a copy of the card exiled with Mimic Vat. It gains haste, and it gets exiled at the end of the turn. So this is just a way to get our hermits into play multiple times and have it. They are a token, so they generate a squirrel, but they also generate more squirrels. There's plenty of other things we've talked about today that this is fine with, or sometimes you just use it as a way to kind of speed bump somebody. They lose a creature. You just go, I'm going to put that under Mimic Vat so that it can't be in your graveyard for a turn or two. Nested Shambler, a zombie that when it dies, you make X tapped green 1/1 squirrel tokens, where X is its power. The nice thing here is with Chatterfang, you can pump up his stats. You can make Chatterfang, or you can make Nested Shambler into a 6 -5 or whatever it is, or 6 -4. So that suddenly it just dies and creates you 12 tapped squirrel tokens. This is just a fun thing to do with your general that obviously they both came out. I don't know if this came out in... It must have come out in the same set. Because they got the same symbol on them, and I feel like they just put it in the old frame just to be fun. But either way, this is a combo that I think most people probably already knew about anyway. Then we've got Parallel Evolution, 5 cost sorcery. For each creature token in play, its controller puts a creature token into play that's a copy of that creature. This is fun. in many, many ways. This is just a fun thing to do that has flashback, and I don't know necessarily fits into the general theme of the deck, other than the fact that you're just making a bunch of squirrel tokens, but at the end of the day, we're just trying to do fun squirrel things. Pitiless Plunder, we already talked about in excess. Revel in Riches, again, I don't want to win with this, but it does happen sometimes. Scoot Swarm, this is actually a card that I kind of want to sub out. I have found that it just dominates the board too much, and yes, it does kind of go infinite at some point. You have enough lands, the landfall trigger just keeps creating copies of itself. That's actually become unfun for me. So this is actually one that I may just look around and see if there's a different option. But this is a powerful card, but kind of has become a little bit maybe too repetitive for me. Second Harvest, for each creature token you control, put a token onto the battlefield that is a copy of that permanent. Basically what we said about Parallel Evolution, but this is just me, and it's an instant, which is pretty great. The very few lands that I'm going to be talking about today are outside of just these are the lands that I have in the deck. So Spawning Bed is a land that makes a colorless, but then you can pay 6, sacrifice it to create 3/1/1 Eldrazi Scions. Those are the ones that you can sacrifice to generate a colorless mana. And obviously at the end of the day, this is just combos well with Chatterfang. And then Treasure Vault. You can sacrifice Treasure Vault, pay XX, and create X treasure tokens. So this means you're getting treasure tokens. You're also getting that many squirrels in the ideal world. And yeah, just more and more tokens everywhere. And this may be a little bit of a redundant category, but this is my Typal stuff. I probably said tribal over the course of this video at some point. My brain is just not in the right place. Typal, this is the Squirrel Typal stuff. We already care about it, so let's just go over it again. Acorn Catapult we've talked about. Acorn Harvest we've talked about. Chitter Spitter we've talked about. Conspiracy. So the new card, Enchantment, this is probably pretty well known, but we'll go over it anyway. You choose a creature type. I choose Squirrel. Creature cards you own that aren't in play, creature spells you control, and creatures you control are the chosen type. So this is just nice because when we do that one mass removal thing, all of our stuff is squirrels, so we don't have to worry about it. And it's also just nice because if there's ever a way that we have to search for a specific creature type, which I don't believe we have in this deck, this would just help. This is probably a low-hanging fruit for another card that could be subbed out. We've already talked about Deep Forest Hermit and Deranged Hermit. We've already talked about Nested Shambler. Here we go. So we've got a new land, a newish land. I think it's probably 2 years old now. But Hollow Village. Land generates a colorless, also generates a green. Spend this only on creature spells. And then a green and tap it to put a +1/+1 counter on each frog, rabbit, raccoon, or squirrel you control that entered the battlefield this turn. That's great. Make a bunch of tokens. We do have to be very picky with what we do because obviously the squirrels we create, we need to know these are the ones that came into play this turn versus these ones that already existed. But this is also just a nice way to get Chatterfang a little bit bigger, which helps because if we want to, we can sacrifice stuff to make his stuff better. So when we do have somebody with a forest in play, we can make him like a 7x creature, like an X1, whatever you want to do. And this just puts a +1/+1 counter onto him on turn 4. And actually, I suppose it'd be turn 5 because you need 3, whatever. This helps all around with squirrels. Scurry of Squirrels, which is a newer card that I added fairly recently. I don't think I acknowledged it for a while. A Squirrel Scout has Myriad, so when it attacks, you make 2 tokens of it. You make 2 copies of it, attacking each other person that it wasn't attacking. When this deals combat damage to a player, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. This just gets out of hand. This is just crazy. It just does so much. And I think if it wasn't for the fact that it basically creates a bunch of tokens, I'm not intending for this deck to be Squirrel Typal. But you so often find a point when squirrels matter, and you might as well lean into that because we have a lot of squirrels. The old Acorn Gang, which some people have said should be the commander, and I just disagree. It has Menace, Trample, Reach. Squirrels you control have tap, target squirrel gets +2/+2 and get trample until the end of the turn. Activate this only as a sorcery. Whenever one or more squirrels you control deal combat damage to a player, draw a card. This is a fun card. It's one that could easily be subbed out if I just decide, hey, I'm not feeling this. And yeah, but you know what? It's a lord in some way, in some form or fashion, and draws me cards, and that's what I care about. And then we've got Valley Rot Caller, which is also a fun card that I've grown to appreciate more and more. It's a 1/3 with Menace. Whenever it attacks, each opponent loses X life, and you gain X life, where X is the number of squirrels, bats, lizards, or rats you control. And, I suppose, and rats you control. This is just a fun effect that fits into the theme and allows me to not solely focus on the Drain Life Prosperous Bloom combo, although that is the way that I want to win, quite honestly. And then wrapping everything up in no particular order, we'll just go through the lands real quick. Most of them are just, they create mana for me, and I love them for that. And I suppose anything that has multiple basic types means that I can go grab it with my, whatever that was, the Perilous Foray card. So yeah, this can be found with Perilous Foray. This is just, a solid dual land. This allows me to give everybody a forest, which is nice because sometimes you're not playing with a green player, or you're playing with somebody that just doesn't play with forest as a type. And yeah, Yavimaya Cradle of Growth just allows me to have Forest Walk against you. Tectonic Edge, just good basic, non-basic land removal. Filter land, dual land, allow me to search. Oh yeah, this allows me to go grab 2 of a type. I'm probably going to go grab 2 swamps. Another just land removal if I need it. Looking for stuff, a way to draw some extra cards. Another dual land, obviously. Dual land. This actually, now that I'm looking at it, I'm confused why it's here a little bit. I mean, yes, I'm giving you a Call of Spirit, but I suppose this is just... This is probably a land that could very easily be taken out. Like I said, there's been quite a few dual lands that have come out, or just lands that fit into this deck. This is one that could probably come out. Dual land, and then just 2 cycling lands that enable us to just get some draw if I need it, or they just come into play tapped. But that is it. That is Chatterfang. This went on a little bit longer than I was expecting. I was hoping this would be about 45 minutes. Maybe when I chop it down, it will be. But that's it. I will say that at the core of this, I want this to be a deck that is more focused on being a soft combo deck and not necessarily lean too far into being a Squirrel Typal deck. And it kind of has, in some ways, out of necessity needed to be that. But I'm open to suggestions. I think the only thing is that with suggestions, it's just sort of like the, hey, let's stay on theme with trying to be in the style of Prosperous Bloom. But that is everything. I thank you for your time and everything, and I want you to have a great day. And remember, you're doing great. Keep it up.